Okay, first, I want to say check out my t-shirt, Train Without Pain. It's from Wolf Culture. I'll put the link in the comments, but also there's a shirt underneath that you can't really see. It's also from Wolf Culture that says reinforcement drives behavior. It's my favorite. I swear half my closet is full of their shirts, dog training and horse training gear, shirts, hats, all kinds of stuff. Anyway, I got a lot of comments on one of my recent videos about because when my horses came up to me in the pasture, I gave them some hay pellets, and that apparently offended quite a few people and made them very inclined to judge and state that it was bribery and all of that. And I wanted to explain why that it doesn't bother me if you give your horse some food when they approach you in the pasture. A lot of people are under the impression that horses should just do things because it's us. We have a very ego-driven perspective on the relationship between horses and humans, and that they should see us as a leader and somebody that they are just supposed to do whatever we ask to do just because it's us. I don't even know why we think that, really, to be honest. I mean, I used to think that as well, but it's if we really think about it, it doesn't make sense. When in reality, horses do things because it works or it doesn't work. There is something in it for them, whether it's to avoid a consequence or an aversive, or to gain an appetitive, something that they desire. So I personally choose to work with horses with primarily positive reinforcement. That's my focus. I follow Lima and the humane hierarchy. So positive reinforcement is part of that. It's part of operant conditioning. There's also classical conditioning, which creates positive association between me and the horses. By me offering them food or something appetitive, it creates a positive association between interacting with me. Positive reinforcement often tends to be related to food and getting to have food, because all animals love food because they need it for survival and because it tastes good, and that's fine. We do too. Actually, if you think about it, our human relationships are often very centered around food, and we tend to underestimate the value of food in relationships. Some of the other things that we find that are positive about our relationships are getting that social interaction, safety, security, entertainment, so having fun together. We all have a reason of why we associate with certain people, or why we continue to maintain friendships and family relationships with people. If the relationship is completely aversive and there is nothing to be desired from this relationship, oftentimes in a healthy situation, we move on from that relationship. We should. If we don't, then it gets to be unhealthy, and there's a whole bunch of layers there, right? Same thing with horses. We have to offer our horses something they desire, and we have to work at creating that positive association between interacting with us and being with us, and it's a little bit intentional. It has to be intentionally created, because we are not horses. They know we're not horses. We are not part of their species. When they are born into a herd, they have a natural desire to remain with their own. So there is already positive reinforcement and positive, associations established from birth. And then if we go beyond that, the foals nursing from their dams, that creates further positive associations with being around mom and being around the herd. Then they get safety, and they get also playing and being able to procreate, so breeding together. There is so much positive reinforcement involved in the herd dynamic and a social dynamic between horse and horse. It only makes sense that humans should do the same thing if we wish horses to be around us and engage with us and have a good relationship with us. And one of the best ways we can do that is to offer them food, is to offer them a source of reinforcement that they desire. And on top of that, I'm only offering hay pellets. I'm not using something sugary and molasses. I'm not using I'm not even using carrots. Sometimes I use celery, which is like 0 calories. And a lot of horses don't like it. So I'm not doing anything crazy. And it's not bribery, because it would be more bribery if I went out to the pasture and I shook the bucket and I kind of lured them to come with me, and then I trapped them in there and gave them food, and then I caught them, right? That's different than, hey, if the horse comes up to me, awesome, surprise, here's your reinforcer. Here's a reward for coming up to me. And if every time I did that, they would start to really look forward to coming up to me and engaging with me and interacting with me. And that, for me, goes well beyond the initial catching stage, or I don't like to use the word catching, but like inviting the horse to participate with me. Yes, I do it then, not all the time, only sometimes, and maybe in the beginning when I'm working with a very fearful horse or a horse with negative associations with people, I do have to do it every single time. And then we start to do it every once in a while, so it's variable reinforcement rate. And then what starts to happen, actually, what's really cool, is those interactions start to become associated with our interaction. So the horse now associates my presence with receiving those positive reinforcers. So even if they aren't present at that moment, it is connected with being around me. And so now being around me and engaging with me is positive reinforcement. And this is where really healthy and strong positive relationships come from, whether it's with people or people to people or people to horses or horses to horses. It's shared reinforcers between the two beings, between the animal and the human, or for the human and the human. There are shared reinforcers present for both participants, not just us. We can't just, or we try to, or we try and pretend like we're the only one that gets to have a reinforcer in this situation where we get to ride the horse and groom them and get all the stuff that we want. And we never offer the horses something. And I know we like to say things like, oh, well, we feed them every day and we buy their, blankets and their tack and we make sure that they don't die and they go to the vet. Horses don't understand drawn out reinforcers like that. They don't understand, things that are way in the future or from even 5 minutes ago. It needs to be now. It needs to be in the moment, and it has to be repeated over and over and over again as a result of their behavior, so they can connect the consequences, whether it's a positive or negative consequence, with the behavior that was just performed. So think about it, if it really needs to happen in like 3 seconds. So they did the behavior, then there's a consequence for it. Behavior, consequence, right? So we need to think more in terms like that and not project our human way of thinking and our human way of looking at the whole situation and knowing, 6 months ago I bought this, I paid tons of money for this horse's colic surgery. They don't think like that. They don't care about that. They don't care that you pay for the barn owner to feed your horse. They're not connecting any of that with you. They're connecting that with the barn owner. So anyway, this was a long response to all of the comments I got about using food and offering my horses food when they came to me in the pasture. It is not bribery. It is part of our relationship. It is something that I am offering my horses as, just part of that relationship and having those shared reinforcers. And then the reinforcers that I get are being able to spend time with them and being able to train and groom and, all these things that we love being around horses, just honestly watching them as a reinforcer for me. So just keep that in mind, that horses don't think the same way we do, and all relationships are based off of shared reinforcers. And if you're not offering your horse something of value to them in the moment, quickly, then likely your relationship is pretty one-sided, and your horse may or may not actually associate you with positive outcomes. And I'm not saying for sure. I'd have, your individual situation, your individual horse, your individual learning history, your horse's individual learning history, all of that comes into play here. But let's not be so quick to judge people based on whether or not they give the horse some food after. I know there was a lot of critique about you don't give horses food, it's dangerous, it creates pushy negative behaviors, all of that. I'm not going to go into that right here, but what I'm going to say is take a look at all my other videos, take a look at the courses that I teach, take a look at my blog, take a look at my podcast, take a look at all of the videos I have training, and just realize that there is a safe and effective way to utilize positive reinforcement with food, and then there is a way that is dangerous and does create those undesirable behaviors. And giving food has gotten a really bad reputation, but that is kind of the way of the past. There's a bad way or a undesirable way to do it. There's a way that does create those undesirable behaviors, and then there's a way to create the desirable behaviors, and it's done well. Just like any other kind of training, you can do natural horsemanship training so badly, but you can also do it beautifully. So try not to judge based off of a couple of bad experiences and maybe an experience where you knew somebody was feeding horses food and it created some bad behaviors, but those people didn't know. They didn't know how to utilize it. They didn't know how to do it safely and teach desirable behaviors. There's so much more to it than just about giving the horse food. So I encourage you to open your minds and open up some different resources, books, articles, web pages, blogs, all of that, and do some research before judging, and go have fun with your horses and scroll past the stuff that you don't agree with.